1870s and 1960s, parts of North Carolina were mining communities for the mineral mica in present-day Avery County, the Lineback mine in the Mount Pleasant community. The operation seemed to release some sort of being that could take on multiple forms, cause poltergeist activity, and reverse time itself. Remember to like, subscribe. In the spring of 1884, a large mica mine was discovered in what was then Mitchell County. Henry Lineback laid claim to the profitable mine. Large cakes of the mineral were used for small windows on the front of coal and wood-burning stoves, vacuum tubes, and a component in toasters. The mineral sales were bringing up to $1,000 a day. In June of that year, Henry defended his claim when he dueled Colonel Nellis Borden, who had come from Louisville, Kentucky, to mine the mineral. Henry shot and killed Nellis inside the mine. In the beginning, men were lowered into the mine in a bucket. But when they dug deeper into the earth, Henry had to invest in a steam boiler to pump out the water. Isaac Aaron Johnson, who had also been a corporal in the Confederate 3rd North Carolina Cavalry, was in charge of splitting timber above ground for bracing in the mine to prevent cave-ins. Columbus Smith, also known as Lum, who was in 1879 elected as Republican County Commissioner of Mitchell County, built a 2-story general store near the mine. The second floor was where he and his family lived. Soon after the store was built, and as the miners dug deeper and deeper into the earth, night watchmen at the mine began having paranormal encounters with a being. They would hear strange noises in the mine when no one was underground and see a human form. Initially, they believed that it was the ghost of Nellis, who Henry had shot to secure ownership, but the being was something different altogether. It would appear in different forms. They could never get the being to speak or make any gestures. In mining folklore, spirits called Tommyknockers are believed to reside in mines. It was believed if they were treated well and offerings of leftover lunches were left for them at night, they would be included to protect miners from accidents, going as far as to start knocking deep in the cave to warn of impending cave-ins. If disrespected, however, they could cause all sorts of bad luck to the miners, cause equipment issues, and even cause cave-ins. But this was no Tommyknocker. One morning before Isaac began sawing lumber, he watched his friend Lum leave the general store for his typical morning walk. The morning was foggy, and Isaac soon heard gunshots. When his friend came back, he asked what had happened. Lum confessed that, "Every time I go out on a foggy morning, she appears before me. I told her to speak or I would shoot, and she never spoke. I drew my revolver and fired. She went 20 to 30 feet up in the air and slowly came back down to the ground, and I fired again. She never spoke or gave any sign." He went on to say that this being had been harassing him for months. The way in which the being was described as not being affected by bullets and gliding up into the air and down again has similarities to the Kelly Hopkinsville encounter. On the evening of August 21st, 1955, the rental home of 5 adults and 7 children were besieged by what the press called little green men. That reminded the experiences of 2 to 4 foot high goblins wearing spacesuits. 2 of the adults shot at the creatures for nearly 4 hours. Each time one of the creatures were hit, it would glide up into the air and then back down again, apparently immune to the bullets. Lum suddenly sold the general store to Fillmore Burleson and his brother Robert Zebulon, also known as Zeb. At first, the being left them alone and focused on harassing miners, but soon the brothers had a very peculiar encounter with the being inside of the store. They recalled that one night, all of a sudden, from the window facing the fireplace, there came a crash and in jumped a man. He walked to the counter all the time, taking objects down and replacing them. This went on for some time, all over the store. When he got to the counter where the coffee was kept, he took it by the top of the bag and drug it to the window. He leaned against the wall, put his hands on the sill, leapt out, and was gone. The window was back in place as it usually was, and the bag of coffee still sitting at the window against the wall. The brothers could only watch speechless as the being was in their store. The breaking and then strange rewinding of the window back to normal defies any common sense, but wouldn't be the last time they had seen that the being could make it seem like time were flowing backward. The owner of the mine, Henry, bought the store from the brothers. He moved his family into the second floor. They soon began having poltergeist type activity in the store. It seemed that every night they would hear a person open the door, shuffle around, and break any china and cookware that the store hadn't stopped. The activity would immediately stop if anyone went downstairs. Trying to be level-headed, Henry installed a padlock on the inside of the door, but the same events occurred night after night, and the padlock was never tampered with. The family soon stopped trying to investigate the phenomenon. They opened a post office in the back of the store and hired Alpha Brand Stammy to run it, as well as come in early each morning and clean up whatever the being had destroyed before the store opened each morning. If the activity experienced by the Lineback family had been the only occurrences, this would have been a simple case of poltergeist activity, known to parapsychologists today as recurrent spontaneous psychokinesis. In such cases, a person going through a time of transition, such as puberty, job change, or divorce, or when a location is being remodeled and is in an in-between state, could hear what sounds like a ghost and be mostly plagued by physical phenomena, especially prone to having this happen are persons who are new to the culture of the community. A minority in the community have a disability or disabilities that limits them in some way, or have a language barrier. But a being such as this does not typically appear in poltergeist cases. Marcus Brownlow Hughes, also known as Brown, purchased the store from the family at a very turbulent time. By March 1886, rights to the mine were contended, and under the earth, a rock fight broke out between prospective owners. Those involved were William Burleson, who claimed to have an official lease, who was possibly backed by three of his sons, David Mitchell, and former owners of the general store, Phil Moore and Zero Burleson, and William M. Johnson. Marcus was one of Spencer P. Hughes' brothers who was assaulted in the mine by the Burlesons. Since the ground was becoming more unstable due to the mining operations, Brown moved to the store about 100 yards closer to the fort and the highway. This seemed to prevent the being from entering the store. However, whenever he would empty a water basin out during the night, he would hear a woman-like scream or wailing in the distance. The being never appeared, though. The miners, however, were still being harassed by the being that seemed to be able to change into the images of different unknown men and women, but would never speak to them. After less and less Michael was coming out of the mine, Brown no longer found his store profitable, so he closed it, and it sat vacant and locked up for years. Two young friends, James Henry, Phil O'Pritchard, and William Daniels, wanted to see if there was any truth to the story of the haunted general store, so they got permission to stay over one night. They set up a single bed in the second story. After a few hours, they had a strange and unforgettably terrifying encounter with the being. It was documented that they heard footsteps coming up the stairs, and a gleam of light paved its way up the walls of the stairwell. A man appeared with a lamp, showing his gleaming big white teeth and a broad grin. He walked over to the wall and fumbled as if putting something into the wall, and then turned around and walked down the stairs as he had come up. They continued to explain that during the encounter, a black cat appeared at the foot of the bed, and they felt as if they were being cooked to death while the being was present. It's almost as if the being was in a parallel dimension that had bled through into our reality for a short time. To the young men, they couldn't see exactly what the being placed into the assumable solid wall. The cat had come and gone with the being. Yet again, the being seemed to rewind itself, walking in reverse as if time were flowing backward. When the store was eventually demolished, the being would appear in the yard where it had once stood. It soon began appearing between Mount Pleasant and crossing over both now in Avery County, North Carolina, and was seen by many people during the day and at night to different residents in the two communities. The being never spoke or interacted with any of the witnesses. No one can say exactly when the being, in whatever form it decided to take, last appeared. Perhaps it was when the mine finally closed.